Swadika, Namaste, welcome. Yep, those are the three languages I know. I leave it to Google to give me the translation for the others. In the next 45 minutes, I'm going to be talking to you about Google Apps, which is one of our core enterprise solutions out of the huge number of solutions that we have. And it's not just about telling you about it, but I'll really create the magic by actually showing you how this really happens. This is what I saw outside. Sorry if I made two of the gentlemen very famous, but these were pictures just clicked just before the event started. This is what is happening out there. Work used to be a place where you walked in at 9 a.m. in the morning to access applications, to be able to work, to be able to get to know people, to be able to communicate with people. That's changing. It's changing. People want to work in a cafe. People want to work just before an event, whenever they get the time, from whatever device. Because what happened earlier was you were limited. You were limited by the time. You were limited because you could not do the things that you wanted to do at a particular time. And that's what has paved way for applications to be created today, which lets you do that. Google Apps was built exactly for this purpose, with exactly this principle in mind. It helped people like us to be able to use any device that we want from anywhere that we are located and get all the information that you wanted to be able to work effectively. If you really look back a few years back, it was more about individual productivity. Today, it's a world about team productivity. You want to have team collaboration. You want information coming in from disparate systems. And Google Apps helps you get all this information onto your device for you to be very effective. Let's start with devices. 5 years back, approximately, on an average, an employee used to have 1.2 devices. There used to be that nice little computer, maybe a laptop in some cases, and a BlackBerry possible. Today, an employee has 3 devices. He has a laptop, he has that nice-looking mobile, and he has that smart device. And to complicate it even more, some of these are owned by the organization, and some of it's owned by the individual employee. And yet, that employee wants to be able to access the applications that he or she wants to be effective. It's probably one of the CIO's greatest nightmare at this point in time to be able to give that application, because the CIO is worried about security of that data leaking out. But that's what these employees are looking for. It's not only about these devices, it's about being able to do it from wherever you are. You may create a document right in your office using your laptop, and then use a device while you're off to a meeting to be able to update that document, and then proofread it when you're back home to be able to send it out to your teams. Wow. That really calls for all these devices being able to sync up immediately, because you want it to be available wherever from whatever device. What does sharing mean today? You know, I stole this from one of my, this is how you're sharing a document today, right? Either you're putting it on this little device, which has the probability of getting lost, or you're sending an attachment to an email, a nightmare to keep where the latest version of that document is, or you're putting up on your network drive and make it mandatory for that particular employee to be there in the office to be able to access it. No more. You want the document to be available where you can access it from any device, from anywhere that you are, be able to update and share that document with not only your peers. Today, when we talk about success, we are talking about the larger ecosystem. We are talking about our partners. We are talking about our customers. How easy it is for me to be able to share that document with my partners and my larger ecosystem, or in addition to my employees. That's what's really needed. That's what collaboration is all about. So in effective, what does working better mean? Working better does not mean that you are just taking the servers that are lying there in your backyard to somewhere in the cloud. It's not about content being moved from your servers to the cloud. It's about having a place where you have the content, which can be easily found, which can be easily shared, where you can collaborate with your employees and the larger ecosystem very effectively from whatever device you want, from any place that you are in. That is the meaning of being working effectively today, so that you as an individual and your team are not only collaborating, but are highly, highly successful. When I meet up with any CIO or any business leader, my main objective is to just make sure how can you as an individual and you as a team be effective using all these applications. All this that we spoke about, you heard Ricky talk about all these applications that we offer to our enterprise or can be developed by developers, are built on an infrastructure that all of us rely on. Google.com has built in that infrastructure over the last few years to make sure, and this is the same infrastructure that runs Google.com that houses all these applications. This infrastructure is something which is highly available, highly scalable, and highly secure. Because we know that till each one of you trusts us, you're not going to be using those applications. To show, before I really call my colleague Zach on the stage, I really want to give you a pinpoint of what these different applications, suite of products of what we call communication and collaboration means. How many of you have, can I have a raise of hands, how many of you have a Gmail account? Oh, I think I asked the wrong question. How many of you don't have a Gmail account? Ah, that's better. So my work's done. Yes, Gmail is our prime consumer product, which really got Google thinking about how effective this can be used within the enterprise. But in addition to Gmail, where we spend a lot of our time while we are at work, there are other applications that are really powerful, that can be really effective. The Google Drive. This is a place where you can have all your content that you want to be able to share with and work on, either as a team, with your customers, or with the larger ecosystem. And this drive can be, again, you can access it from whatever device that you want. Google Docs. So when we talk about presentations, I'm using a Google Doc. This is a presentation made on a Google Doc. So it talks about spreadsheets or presentations. All these are available. On a click of a button, you can create them. On a click of a button, you can share it. That's what it means for business to be able to be more effective. Sites. Today we talk about going to IT to create these internal sites, intranets. Marketing wants an internal site to be able to collaborate with each other. It's a nightmare for IT to be able to keep track of it. Wouldn't it be amazing if I can empower the business to actually create them themselves and choose what they want to do on that particular intranet site, or share it with a larger ecosystem? Wait till you see the magic happen. Collaboration. We just love collaborating. We just love working with everybody together because we know that this is the way that we can be successful. We at Google believe that in the next 3 to 4 years, 20% of the communication that happens would be using collaboration tools. And that's why we have Google+, which helps our customers to be able to collaborate within the teams that they want. And this team doesn't mean internal, it could mean external too. It could mean suppliers for a manufacturing industry, it could mean customers for somebody else. Hangouts. A way that you want today, it's not about just having an email ID. That's not really the way that you have a profile today, right? It's about having a photograph. It's about having a visual to whom are you talking to? And we'll demonstrate very soon. So to do that, to see the magic happen, let me call on stage Zach Tan, my colleague and my partner. Give him a round of applause, guys. So let's do this. Let me wear a different hat. Let me say that I am a prospect customer. And I should have gotten my tuxedo. And Zach is an employee, a sales engineer at Google. So Zach, here's the problem. I have 3,000 employees spread across different cities across the globe. Tell me, how does Google Apps really help me do all my communications right in one single place?
Right. Good afternoon, Anish. Good afternoon, everyone. I think that's a great question, right? I mean, we talk about most companies. Everyone needs to communicate with either their employees, their vendors, or their business partners. Email is essential for business today. And really, I think if you look at Gmail, I think Anish just now asked the question already. I don't have to ask that. And really, I think the reason why a lot of people use Gmail today is a couple of things. First, for me, for example, is the ability to find information at an instant. Right? Just type any query, and within sub-a-second, you can return all kinds of emails that matches the search term. The other great thing, of course, is the fact that you have immense storage. Right? If you have a consumer Gmail account, you have 15 gigabytes of storage. For enterprise customers, you have 30 gigs of storage. This 30 gigs of storage allows you to store, for most customers, for most users, up to 100 times more than your corporate inbox today if you have it like 300 megs kind of inbox space. And this storage is not just shared for email, but it's also used for Drive and for photos as well, which is really where digital storage is all about today. The other great thing, of course, is the fact that you could access it from any device, right? You're no longer tied to a physical company-issued computer for you to access your emails. But you could access it from your favorite mobile device, whether it's an iPhone, Android, your own tablet, whether it's an iPad or an Android OS. You could use mobile applications like this, which is custom built by Google, and you could actually read your emails on the fly. You get all the features that talk about instant search, threading, as well as if you don't have your own sort of like tablet, you could use, for example, the web interface to sort of sign in. And Google Apps, like what Anish mentioned, it's optimized for mobile interface, right? So when you sign in and use the Google Apps services, it automatically creates a user interface that's optimized for the form factor that you are using in terms of the device.
Awesome. So what you're telling me, Zach, is that I can communicate using any device. I could be in any place, And I don't need to install anything. All I need is a browser to be able to access these applications. Isn't that amazing? I think so. So if I'm able to communicate with everybody, what about this buzzword about collaboration? How does collaboration really happen in Google Apps?
Right. So I think collaboration is, the definition of collaboration is actually a lot of people working on a common task towards a common target. And it is actually a buzzword that's being used by most enterprises today. In Google Apps, collaboration happens in a couple of different ways. In terms of the way to facilitate different people to work closely together, we actually use, for example, the Google Drive. Right? So Google Drive is, as you can see in the video earlier, is actually a very integral part of collaboration for most organizations. So Google Drive has that component where you could open up and work on a presentation, a word processor, as well as a spreadsheet tool. And right now, what I'm going to do is just open up a couple of the documents that is existing within my Google Drive today. This Google Drive is in the cloud. This Drive folder is actually shared with a couple of my colleagues today. So I could share either single documents, or I could share entire folders to my co-collaborators. And I can change permissions so that they could either edit the documents or they could view the documents only. Right? So in this case, for example, I have 3 documents inside a folder, which I've shared with a couple of my coworkers. I've opened up the first one, which is a spreadsheet. So this looks like Excel to a lot of people. And it is actually performing most of the functionality that Excel does. This is a fantastic word processor in the sense that it allows multiple people to work on the same document at the same time. So in this case, for example, I have 3 of my coworkers actually working on the same document at the same time. We could have an in-document chat asking about each other about various inputs. And you can go in and start changing figures. And the great thing about Google Docs is all this content resides on the internet, on a common interface. And any changes that you make to the documents gets reflected immediately on the internet. So for example, the charts will automatically change with figures that starts changing at the same time. What this means is that if you have many people working on the same document, you could achieve your objectives really, really quickly, rather than to have to wait for attachments to come in your mailbox for you to open, edit, send it back to a collaborator who has to then collate all the changes, merge all the changes before he actually sends it out to everybody. So this sort of really accelerates the time that we take to sort of complete simple tasks. The great thing about Google Docs is, of course, every of the change is actually tracked via a revision history. So I can see in the instance of the 5 minutes, for example, which of my colleagues has gone into which cell to sort of make the changes. So if I extrapolate this, if I don't look at the spreadsheet, and let's say I look at a word processing document instead, this is going to be the same kind of effect, right? So when we work on a document, it is talking about building content from different people. People with different inputs will start coming into the document and start making changes. This case, for example, I've seen Johan, one of my colleagues, has gone in and sort of like make certain changes to the executive summary. I could see who are the people that's active within the document, and I could see all the changes that's being made. And with features that is part of the consumer offering, you could actually do, for example, the ability to do translation, right, which is really powerful, as you can see from the previous video. The fact that nowadays in a globalized workforce, it's not all about just working within your own country, within your own company, but really sometimes the fact that you could work with, for example, people in China, and if you send a document in Thai, they could use the same tool to translate that back into their native language using Google Translate technology. So all this happens really in an instance, all in a browser without having to install any software, maintain any expensive hardware on your back end. And if you look at it, it's just now in line with the theme I've talked about in terms of mobile. I'm just going to show you how it looks like in a mobile device. And so I have a tablet, and I have a Google Drive app installed. And if I look at the documents, I could open the same documents in my Google Drive. Just going to try to sync the document in. So the same changes that it's been made to the document at the same time. It's visible on my tablet as well, right? So you can see all the highlighting all happens at the same time. All this is live on the internet, and my collaborators are somewhere here as well as somewhere in the world. Later you will find out when we talk about Hangouts.
Voila. So what I'm seeing is that they could be anywhere. They could be accessing the document wherever they are, any device, it does not matter. All they needed was a simple browser to be able to access these applications. Or using a tablet, he had a drive folder where he could access the document. Sounds amazing. But tell me one thing, Zach. If I wanted to share this document in a real-time Hangout, I've heard about this Hangout thing that you guys have. What is that?
Yeah, so Google Hangout it's part of our Google Plus offering, and it's a very important component in Google Apps. It is the social spine of Google, and Google Hangouts is really the tool where we allow up to 15 different participants to have a face-to-face video conference at the same time. And what I'm going to do is try to show you how this is actually being done in Google and most of the companies that's using Google Apps today, right? So there's a couple of ways you could actually join a Hangout. You could initiate a Hangout and sort of like ping people and ask people to join a Hangout. But in most cases, most companies, what they will do is a Hangout is nothing more than a meeting, if you ask me, right? So most of the time, what we do is we create a calendar event. We put in a video call link into the event. We send it to all the participants. And all participants just need to do is sort of click the link to sort of join the meeting. There's no longer a need for you to find where's the meeting room, whether there's a meeting room available, how do I travel, how much time do I need to travel to that meeting room to sort of like take the call. All this can happen by just a click of a button. So in this case, if you can look at the screen on the left and on the right, what I'm going to do is just to join a video Hangout simply through a click of a button on a calendar invite in my Google Calendar. So when I do that, I automatically initiate a video conference call, right, where I'm about to join a video call. I just want to make sure that I look pretty good before I join the call because they'll be able to see my face. And I could join a video conference relatively easily with just my standard laptop, right? So no expensive video conferencing hardware or software required. Just a plain old simple browser on a MacBook in this case.
I know that character. He sits in Singapore somewhere, right? I have coffee with him every day.
Yeah. So my colleagues in Jasper, who is actually sitting out of Singapore, is actually in the same Hangout today at the same time. Singapore is 1 hour back. 1 hour back, yep. And but he has kindly sort of like joined me in the Hangout because we have a scheduled meeting at this point in time to discuss, for example, the figures that we start changing in that spreadsheet, right? So this is something that's really powerful, and I could share the screen, or I could share the documents that we talked about just now, right? So all the people in the Hangouts actually have access to the same document. I'm going to just quickly open that particular document so that we can have a common context when we discuss the particular meeting that we're talking about here. So everybody, again, it's not just about having a tool that allows you to work on the same document or the same version at the same time, but really the ability for you to also have a face-to-face conversation. Now we have 4 person on the call. We can have up to 15 person on the call doing all this at the same time, right? So there's no longer a need for you to sort of like procure expensive video conferencing hardware, software, even the dedicated sort of line to sort of connect all this to get high quality video conferencing experience. And I have something to share as well. And the fact that it's not just about on the desktop, you could do it on the mobile phone as well. And this is really, really powerful, for example, when we are all busy individuals. So sometimes you may not be really at your desk at the same time. For example, I travel a fair bit. I spend my time on the cab, on the train, on the BTS, on the MRT. And sometimes I just want to be in a call. I would just want to have the ability to hear and join some of these meetings without having to be carrying my laptop onto a train. That's not possible. But I could really sort of like join a Hangout on my mobile phone. And that's what I'm going to show. It's the fact that while this Hangout is actually happening, I could go onto my mobile phone. Sorry.
Oh, now I know your code.
So I'm going to join a Hangout through a mobile device as well, right? So you've just seen me done most of my stuff on a tablet, but I have a mobile phone. Everyone has 1 in 3 Thai has a smartphone today, and you could do the same thing. So there's a Hangout that's ongoing. I could just join that with a click of a button. I'm just going to mute my microphone so that you don't hear the feedback. But really what is happening now is, of course, I'm in the same Hangout. I could, right now, shut down my screen, right, on my desktop, and I could start having a call directly using my mobile phone, right? So all this is really possible. This is not science fiction. This is really possible right now. And beyond the fact that you could just share documents, you could also do screen sharing, right? So this is really powerful from the fact that it's not about just sharing your own picture, but the fact that you could share information, really all kinds of information on a video conference with your coworkers at the same time.
Wow, so I can see so much collaboration that I can really do to make my team successful. You know what, I'm going to flip something. I have a big problem, Zach. I have a colleague called Kathy. You see her right here. Every month, she needs to do this survey. She has to send out this survey to her teams, her larger ecosystem, the people that she works with, and she has to come to me to create this survey form. And she doesn't even realize that I have so much work. I want to make sure that she can do the survey all by herself. Do you think Google Apps can help me with that?
Oh, definitely, right? So this is another common business scenario, right? A lot of the business folks today needs to collect a lot of information, or they want to collect a lot of information, but the tools right now in the market, the tools made available by the IT team, may not be the most friendly for the non-technical folks to sort of like create a form. And in Google, we are all about consumer technology. We are all about providing tools and solutions for consumers, and consumers are not technical by nature. So you should be able to create a form very easily using Google Apps. And that's exactly what our product engineers have done. They have taken the concept of a spreadsheet, but creating a front end where it's very simple for users to create a form. So a form is nothing more than just a vehicle for you to collect information. And that's where you could create questions, and you could create all kinds of questions in various formats. You could create questions as complex in a grid format, in a checkbox, in radio box, or just very simply a text box, kind of open text box kind of a question. And what you could do is, of course, you could then allow the form to be published and share with people, and people could sort of go in to the form and start submitting information, right? So the form is automatically saved, and what I'm going to do is just view the live form. So the live form will be published on the internet right now, and you could then just go in and start making your form submission. You could also send the form via email, or embed this, or share the form, for example, through Facebook, through Google+, through Twitter as well, so that your followers could go in and start providing information back to you. This information could be anything related to the product, to the service that your company is offering to your users right now. This is almost the same form that we are using for this event as well. And later on, once you have time, you could go to the Chrome bar on the other room to sort of submit the form. So what I'm going to do is, this form, what happens is that, at the end of the day, all the form gets collected into a spreadsheet. Because at the end of the day, all the forms are all about responses from your respondents, right? So what I'm going to do is then just submit this form, provide some input about this particular event. I'm biased, of course. I'm going to put very, very good for all the tracks. I'm going to be very interested in a lot of the solutions. And I'm going to just submit this form. And what you should see is that, automatically, if you missed it, entries will start coming into this particular form. So later on, when you actually go out and start filling in the forms, we will see immediate responses from you on how the event is going. So just provide us the honest feedback, and we'll be happy to look at that information. And so Google Forms not only just allows you to have a vehicle to collect all these responses, but also to be able to have a very instant summary of the kind of responses. So I have about 24, 25 responses from this particular spreadsheet, and this is automatically summarized onto a page which I could actually see all this information. I could publish this form information onto a Google site, which we'll talk about shortly, as well, so that you could then immediately provide immediate response back to your respondents.
Wow. Do you have 10 minutes after this event? I want you to make sure that you train Kathy to do this so that in case I do go Google, she doesn't come and bother me.
Oh, sure, definitely.
One last thing that I really want to ask you. We have this HR team which does a lot of these trainings for my employees, or marketing that they want to create this intranet site where they can collaborate about this event. How easy or difficult it is to create the site and make possible for all the employees or that division to really collaborate with each other?
Yep. So good question. I think in this brief couple of minutes, we've already shown you quite a fair bit of capabilities in Google Apps. But one of the least known and least used functions in Google Apps is Google Sites. And really, Google Sites is a tool for you to, for the non-technical people, people who don't know HTML, who can't differentiate HTML from JavaScript, to be able to build a site, right? So all you need to do is to be able to create, have the ability to create or edit a Word document, right? So this is the actual editor for Google Sites. You could go in, build the site, create the content, just type in as per normal, and this is like a standard Word editor, and you could then create the content very, very simply. Google Sites allow you to embed dynamic content into the sites as well. So images, YouTube videos could easily be created and embedded into a site for non-technical people. Right, so I have one example of a site here which is really powerful. I think when we talk about Google Sites, one of the key features in Google Sites is the ability for you to share this information freely with your employees. So this is an example in the hospitality industry where a simple scenario of training the employee. Right, in the hospitality industry, we have very high turnover. It's hard to get staff to sort of be a housekeeper for 5 or 10 years, right? So we always have people that is high turnover. And you want to have an effective medium to be able to train these employees. You can't afford to give them expensive e-learning courseware. But what you could do is you could document down the training into a site. You could use a regular phone to capture a video about how you could do that task. Save that video, upload to YouTube, make it private, embed this into your site, and then share this site with your workers. And what this allows you to do is, of course, just on the statistics we already mentioned, 1 out of 3 Thai folks have a smartphone, and you don't have to even provide a PC for these workers to sort of like learn simple tasks like how to make a bed. They could just open up their smartphone or their tablet or their own PC and be able to do that simply. So for example, what I'm going to do is to just see how the site looks like. This is the same site that is being shown here. Google Sites automatically massage the content so that it's mobile optimized. It will look nicely onto your mobile device. If I'm using a tablet, it will create it in landscape, but if I change it to portrait, it will automatically adjust it accordingly as well. So, the employee could actually just watch the video, read through the instructions, and get trained on the basics of how to make a bed, for example. So just in line with what we talked about earlier as well, the fact that the surveys that I talked about just now could easily also be embedded into a site, right? So this site could sit on your intranet, it could sit on the internet, it could be your customer-facing site, and again, be a vehicle to collect all this information into that spreadsheet, and as well as a tool for you to then be able to then visualize that respondent information onto a site in real time.
Wow. Somehow Google seems to have answers to everything, right? But you saw the real power. You saw how Zach could demonstrate that he could access these applications from any device, collaborate with team members wherever they're located at any time that he wanted. But rather than hear from Zach and from me, I think one of the greatest testimonials is probably hear a customer. And let's hear to one of them right now.
I am the CEO of F&N. We have subsidiaries in the food and beverage distribution business. Distribution of dairy and soft drinks products across Malaysia and Thailand.
We are in a fast-moving consumer goods company. Everything around fast consumer goods is about IT, in terms of using IT as a collaboration tool. One of the things we could not do is trying to use Lotus to adapt to many of the mobile solutions that we intend to do. Looking at the other solutions and find out probably Google was probably the most appropriate platform for us to move into.
I must say that the journey to Google is very short. It's not too difficult as well, so it makes it very useful.
Google Apps is probably one of the best IT investments we've made. It's been actually a very exciting journey for us.
It certainly helps when you're sharing documents, and especially if you are operating in bigger territories like Malaysia,
where multiple users from multiple locations can be doing updates on these spreadsheets. Integrity is maintained. Exciting thing is you can actually see people updating on a real-time basis.
We have about 3,000 employees, close to half are in the distribution, in the field. They're on the move all the time. Our employees can bring along their favorite mobile devices hooked up to us, to our systems, and they can use it.
We are very enthusiastic that we have made the right decision here, and without hesitation, we would like to share our success with others.
We have to deal with upgrades. So every few years we worry about upgrades. Now Google, we don't have to think about upgrading. Somebody is doing the work for us.
The benefits we have achieved, they are not hype, they are real.
Thank you very much for listening to us.